in 2002, the very first thing I did was bring all the industry, all the manufacturers at that time in Jefferson County. That's where the city of Madison is located. We have about 3,000 manufacturing jobs there, largely automotive related. You know, much like Kim did, brought everybody today, we asked them, you know, how can we better serve your needs? Where have we dropped the ball? And it became obvious very quickly when I joined the college that really for the decade or so before that, it was just too easy to put in another computer lab and fill it up with students than invest the enormous amounts of money it takes to truly train people for the maintenance positions that you guys need. You know, the equipment out there is very expensive. So basically my chancellor heard from the horse, you have nothing that can serve us right now. So we quickly put a team together of the advisory committee and asked them, you know, what are your top priorities? The top priorities for them were that it needed to be flexibly scheduled, it needed to be hands-on, and it needed to be troubleshooting-based curriculum. So that was our challenge, to go out and research options and develop a proposal or a method to meet those needs. So we evaluated several different coastal. We ran across Amatrol, and we really liked what they had to offer. I'm much like Kim. You know, we get a lot of requests for 1 or 2 people for training, and that's an extremely difficult task to do. It's expensive, and so in my small region, I represent less than 2% of the state's population. What we were having to do is I'd get 2 from this company, 2 from that company, so it really wasn't very responsive. You know, you may want it tomorrow, where I said, well, give me you can either pay $6,000 for you today. If you'll give me a few weeks, maybe I can get your cost down to a few $1,000s, and I spread it out. So that's not really a very responsive. So what we did was, you know, the other thing that the industry truly wanted, and everybody's doing it in our region now, we've been doing this since 2002, sort of a multi-craft position, not so much specializing, but we started off, we had limited budgets, we were in the middle of a capital campaign, so they kind of drove our investment decisions. This was not an Ivy Tech decides, let's do this. It was driven by that advisory committee that I mentioned earlier. So we started off with 4 very basic trainers, basic electrical, mechanical, fluid power, and some motor controls. We also put in place a capital improvement plan to begin to add new equipment every couple of years, every year as we could. A few years later, the power plants came to us. They saw a huge retirement bubble facing them, and so they helped identify some trainers that we needed that would serve their industry, an instrumentation and control, a steam trainer, and a few other things. But what we've developed is that we now run an open, self-paced, industrial, hands-on industrial maintenance training program down in our region. And that's at Madison and Lawrenceburg right now. And we're in the process of building a new facility in Batesville, and we'll run it the same way. And what I mean by open, self-paced does not mean that there's not an instructor in there. There's an instructor in there to help everybody as they go along. You know, the old way to take a basic electrical class might be you gave me 3 hours every Tuesday night for 10, 12 weeks. Well, you know, during that 10 or 12 weeks, you may have had to send somebody to Mexico or Germany, so they miss and they fall behind. That doesn't happen in the model that we now operate down in our region. It's all competency-based, so they come in and they'll start a basic electrical program, and they'll proceed at their own pace. To move from one step to the next, they have to pass both a written test, cognitive test, as well as a hands-on skill demonstration to the instructor, which is what they all wanted the most. You know, so you can pass a written test at an 80%, but you have to do the hands-on skill at 100% with no coaching. Now, as you go through the class, there's an instructor in that lab that provides one-on-one coaching. So our new model is a mixture of computer-based training. Amatrol uses the term LAP. It stands for Learning Activity Package, but basically it's nothing but a workbook. Okay, basic electrical class would have 6 of these, and each one's probably going to take somebody in the neighborhood of 4 to 8 hours to get through. Okay. And as they go through and when they're ready to test, then they'll take the written test and do the hands-on demonstration for the instructor at that time. If they don't pass either one of those criteria, then they just move back and they review the sections that they missed. The piece we really like is that math is embedded. Most of the folks that you guys are dealing with, I know most of the folks we're dealing with, if you tell them you've got to go take an algebra class, they're done, they're going to push away right away. The math is embedded. We've given this training to enough folks to see that they do improve their math scores. They're learning applied algebra whether they know it or not. And our goal is not to stump anybody, because out there on the floor, they're going to have their cheat sheets. They don't have to memorize formulas or anything along those lines. We're there to help bring them along and raise their skill sets. So I've got a number of companies that are now paying for knowledge based on this model. Amatrol has a basic and intermediate and advanced levels, and they've incentivized their employees to go through the training. I'll use one example, Madison Precision Products. The biggest advantage we saw, Madison Precision Products is a Honda supplier. I could name a Toyota supplier. I've got Gallatin Steel in Kentucky. I've got a number of companies that have gone through this. But what Madison Precision Products did was send 25 people over to us, okay? And again, this is self-paced. So while they were paid to be there a few hours a week, many took it upon themselves to come in during the rest of the time when the lab is open, off hours, to get through the material quickly and earn that raise. So it gives the employer an opportunity to see who wants this. Who's going to go out and take it upon themselves to get through this training. I just had an individual that was unemployed less than 7 or 8 months ago, and he's now completed about 9 or 10 different courses with us in a 6-month period. So it's possible. He's coming every day. He's now found a job. He was actually on a temporary, and they started sending him for 3 hours a couple of days a week, but he's been in there another, easily 20 hours a week to get through this material. So that's how our model works. It doesn't replace everything. I mean, if a company has 6 or 8 people that they want trained in something, that's about where it becomes cost effective to have a class just for that company, and we can certainly customize anything, and we do that. Many times the class will involve, maybe 15 or 16 to 20 hours of lecture, and then we'll spend 16 to 20 hours in our lab doing some work where it's more directed, the typical format. But again, what this has enabled us to do, this self-paced lab, is really serve all the companies, even the larger ones that just have 1 or 2 people. The thing that we like is it's very modularized. You don't have to, if what we do in our region, that if a person comes and tests out of the first 4 laps, again, I mentioned that there were 6 of these laps, again, that's just a workbook, for the basic electrical class. If that person tests out of 4 of those, then they've saved the time and money associated with spending all that time in the classroom. They only have to take the material that they hadn't passed yet, because it's all competency based. It's no longer seat time. We don't care about seat time. Our focus is on, can they do the hands-on skills that are needed out there, and can they pass the test at least an 80%. Different companies have selected different passing scores. We kind of let them choose that. So again, it's really worked well for us. I've got LG&E from Kentucky sending 10 people over. They're taking a series of 10 or 12 technical courses. Anchor Glass and Rohr Casket and Hill-Rom and Batesville Tool and Die. I could list about 15, 20 companies that have all bought into this, and it's because they had all the buy-in from the beginning. They drove every decision we've made. We now have a lab in Madison and Lawrenceburg that's probably close to $1 million to $1.5 million of hands-on trainers, and pretty much everything's Amatrol with except some of the robots and CNC machine. Now that's all, we can't do those type classes self-paced, but electrical, mechanical, PLCs, the fluid, the steam, the pumps, all of those things lend themselves to this type of format. So